it's Jono from Seneca, and I hope the last episode of this series got you intrigued and thinking about the environment and pollution, because we're going into even more detail in this episode where we're going to be looking at sources of common atmospheric pollutants. So, where are we going to get started? Let's start with fossil fuels, that old chestnut. And burning fossil fuels is a major cause of air pollution. Burning fossil fuels produces lots of carbon dioxide as well as smaller quantities of other pollutants. We're going to start off with some sulfur. Sulfur is an impurity that is present in all fossil fuels. You heard me, all fossil fuels. Sulfur oxidizes when it's burnt, and this produces the toxic gas sulfur dioxide. Next, we're going to talk about incomplete combustion. When fuels are burnt in insufficient oxygen, it produces two problematic byproducts. First things first, we've got carbon monoxide, which is toxic. We've also got particulates, and these are small solid particles containing carbon and unburnt fuel. Internal combustion engines in cars. When fossil fuels are burnt in a confined space, the high temperature can cause nitrogen and oxygen to react, and this leads to the formation of toxic nitrogen oxides. Now, do we remember the toxic gas that's produced when sulfur is burnt? It's sulfur dioxide. Not monoxide, not trioxide, it's sulfur dioxide. And what happens when fossil fuels are burnt in the internal combustion engine of cars? Nitrogen and oxygen reacts, and this produces nitrogen oxides. Now, we need to talk about the consequences of these atmospheric pollutants. The ones we've mentioned so far are carbon monoxide, particulates, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen oxides. And these all have some negative effects. Let's start with particulates. Inhaling particulates can cause respiratory problems, and particulates reflect incoming radiation back into space, causing global dimming. This increases the amount of sunlight available for photosynthesis and can have knock-on effect on rainfall patterns. What about carbon monoxide? Well, this bad guy binds to hemoglobin in the blood, restricting the blood's ability to transport oxygen around the body. It is odorless and colorless and makes it difficult to detect. Carbon monoxide poisoning can lead to fainting, comas, and even death. Okay, nitrogen oxide, what about those? Inhaling nitrogen oxides can cause respiratory problems. Nitrogen oxides can react with water to form nitric acid, and nitric acid is a major component of acid rain, which can cause steel corrosion and the weathering of buildings and statues, as well as death in insects, plants, and aquatic organisms. Not great. Sulfur dioxide, what about that? Inhaling sulfur dioxide can cause respiratory problems, and it can also react with water, forming sulfuric acid, which is another major component of acid rain. And remember, what are the two things that acid rain does? Well, the first is corrosion or weathering, and the other is the death of insects, plants, and aquatic organisms. So what are those 5 atmospheric pollutants from fossil fuels that you need to remember? It's particulates, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and don't forget about carbon dioxide. That's covered in the greenhouse gases episode, so make sure you check those out. So those are 5 very important pollutants to remember. Do we remember why carbon monoxide is difficult to detect? Well, it's because it's odorless and it's colorless. That's right, odorless, colorless, and deadly. What are the 2 components of acid rain? So, sulfuric acid, which comes from sulfur dioxide, and nitric acid, which comes from nitrogen oxides. I hope this was a useful recap of some common sources of atmospheric pollutants. Make sure you check out the other episodes in the series to get up to speed on greenhouse gases and other atmospheric pollutants and all of the different problems that there are with climate change. An interesting series of episodes, if I do say so myself. Thanks for joining. Good luck with all your revision and your studying. Keep up all your hard work. One more podcast, get it in there. You can do it. And best of luck for your exam.